Also are going to see is that the New York Yankees are retiring Paul ONeill's number, John. And they've already retired a bunch, like Bernie Williams is retired, Jeter, obviously. You go up and down the list. Is this worthy? Like, is Paul ONeil in his 8 years in New York? I saw this and I was like, it's a good number. Problem number one. That is a problem I have. It's not a weird one like 51, where even if you're kind of a fringe retire the number guy like Bernie, well, hey, nobody wants to pick that really anyway. Like, is Brett Gardner going to get his number retired like 5 years from now? Is that where we're at right now? Because this is silly. Paul ONeil getting his number retired, I think is pretty silly, right?
It's silly insofar as Paul ONeil is not and will never be and is no one's idea of a Hall of Famer aside from the more thick-headed Yankee fans in existence who also think guys like Andy Pettitte are Hall of Famers. And Andy Pettitte
also had his number retired.
But this is part of the thing. Like, these retirements obviously are not happening solely because of are you Hall of Fame worthy or not. This is the Yankees choosing to recognize the core four and honestly, with well, I guess ONeil wasn't really part of that core four because I was Jeter, Rivera, Posada, Bernie Williams, and who am I missing in there? Am I missing anyone?
Wait, say it again.
Jeter, Rivera, Posada, Pettitte,
Clemens.
No, I guess it's just those four, but also recognizing that ONeil was part of that he was there for a lot of those good years. He obviously remains a fan favorite because he does represent, I think, some of the more. I think he is the current day Yankees equivalent, I think, to Keith Hernandez in a lot of ways. Not in terms of careers, not in terms of what their careers looked like. Although Hernandez is also a guy who, Hernandez was a better player in his career than Paul ONeil was in his time. But in that same kind of emotional resonance, I think that Hernandez has with Mets fans, ONeil has with Yankees fans. It's this kind of salt of the earth, like warrior type guy that they all adored, and I think. And again, Hernandez was a better player than ONeil was. I think ONeil got to this place particularly a lot thanks to his reputation of being just such a red ass, hard ass. I'm a big time player. Purely by the numbers, no, this is not a retirement worthy thing. Just going, if you want to get into the advanced analytics nerd stuff, and this is granted, this is Hall of Fame stuff. This is not Yankees retired numbers standards, but still, Paul ONeil finished his career with just shy of 39 wins above replacement. The average Hall of Fame right fielder put up 71 in their career. By those ranks, and this is through Jay Jaffe's JAWS system, which is his way of, or his wins above replacement based kind of grading system or number system for retired player, or for retired and current players. ONeil ranks is 66th in the right field rankings, just above Sean Green and right behind Reggie Sanders. Amusingly enough, he's been passed in career wins above replacement by Aaron Judge. I do kind of enjoy that. There are all of, I believe, five Hall of Fame right fielders with a worse career wins above replacement than ONeil. I'm pretty sure they were all inducted by either the Veterans Committee or for their contributions elsewhere, like Casey Stengel. Just looking by career WAR, ONeil is on the same level as Juan Gonzalez, Kirk Gibson, David Justice, weirdly enough, Roger Maris, Maglio Ordonez, Jason Hayward. Some of those guys are better known than others. Certainly guys like Gibson and Maris have claims to fame well beyond what their careers were. And maybe Gibson may just be the best kind of overall analogy to him, better than Hernandez, with that same kind of temperament, that same kind of mentality, the same kind of overall shape to their careers, the same kind of, I think, what they meant to the fan base, just generally meaning more than what their actual career was. Because Paul ONeill's not getting his number retired for anything because of the fact that he's a future Hall of Famer, that he was some kind of all-time Yankees great. He's simply not. He's getting his number retired because he means a lot to a particular segment of Yankees fans that is roughly between our ages to about 20 or so years older, for whom he was one of the faces of those championship teams. And I think that particularly given that, since 2000, the Yankees have won all of a single World Series. I think there is also an element of the franchise kind of wanting to hang on to those years, to those dynasty years, because it's really the last time the Yankees were the Yankees in that sense. Paul ONeilll, in a sense, calls back to those last dying Yankee dynasty days in the same way I think that Yankees fans probably felt in the 50s, like looking back from the 70s to the 50s and the 60s about the way those teams, or at least in the early 70s, and then again, I imagine in the 80s, the way those teams were dynastic in a way that future Yankees teams simply weren't. So yeah, this is more than anything about nostalgia, which, I mean, every number retirement is about nostalgia, but this is purely nostalgia because on a pure numbers, stats, career basis, no, there's no reason to retire Paul ONeill's number. He was a fine player for what he was, but he was never anything
Maglio
close.
Ordonez, I'm glad you said him because that's who I always thought about with him. It's like he was the Maglio for the Yankees, but it's like it's fine, but how much do we put on Jerry Seinfeld for this debacle? How much do we put Paul ONeill's appearance on the most popular program of all time? Is that a big part of this? Is that he was on the screen with Kramer, and then people were like, "Oh, what a legend! He made it on." And you made the Keith Hernandez. You brought Keith Hernandez to the table.
I mean, if
two
you
Seinfeld
were
guys.
a New York athlete between the years 1989 and 1996, like there was a good chance you were going to end up on Seinfeld anyway, particularly if you're a baseball player.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny, I hadn't remembered the ONeil thing till you just mentioned, and the whole "why did you promise 2 home runs? 2 is better than 1."
Yeah.
I hope they brought the sick kid from the hospital to be a part of the ceremony.
Well, hold on,
that.
John. There's a how do I frame this without maybe off air, or I'll send it in the chat of why that might not be the best idea for Paul ONeil to be around a sick child.
Fair, okay, fair. I'd forgotten about that too. But
okay, so you know what I'm talking about, yeah.
There's no reason but nostalgia and whatever feel like, and the desire on the Yankees' part to make people remember those teams again. To retire Paul. Also, the fact that ONeil is, for all intents and purposes, a team employee now. I mean, he works as a color guy on Yes Network. There is also that element of it too, where I think it's
But 21 is a good number. This is some BS for kids coming up. 21's a good number.
That is the thing to me about the Yankees retiring numbers, where to me it's less about who they choose to retire, more about the fact they don't have numbers left.
Yes. Like, you're going to have to start unretiring some numbers soon because they have retired a unbelievable amount of numbers now.
Yeah, they literally do not have single-digit numbers available anymore. All single-digit numbers have been retired by the Yankees. Every number through 10. They still have a few numbers in the teens that have not been retired. But here's a full list of retired Yankees numbers. 1 through 10, 15, 16, 20, 21, 23, 32, 37, 42, 44, 46, 49, and 51.
Goodness gracious.
So there are some gaps in there in the 20s, 30s, and 40s, I guess, and then above. And I mean, I'm not knowledgeable. I don't know uniform numbers off the top of my head, so I don't know what current or recent Yankees have worn those numbers. It may also one day come into this conversation, but yeah, it's definitely a thin crop, at least in the teens, if you want a Yankees number. The thing is, though, I don't see them ever unretiring these because all of these retired numbers, are all kind of foundational numbers within Yankees mythology. Do you know what I mean? Every single one of these players is either a Hall of Famer or some building block part of the Yankees franchise in its history, or both. The closest I think you can get to saying, okay, that's a little much, is a guy like ONeil or Pettit or someone maybe like
I mean, Billy Martin's already been fired 19 times with the organization. Fire his number being retired. There you go.
Yeah, and I think part of it too is like, especially anyone who's dead on this list and is in the Hall of Fame or carried some kind of emotional cachet like Martin, kind of hard to see them unretiring that too,
Yeah.
Like, I mean, look, like, no, they're never going to unretire like Jeter's number or Babe Ruth's number or Gehrig's number, DiMaggio's number, Mickey Mantle's. Those are
Joe Torre though, like number 6, like Joe Torre doesn't need his number retired. 6 needs to open back up.
But then that's the question beyond that. It's like, if you retire a number, and this is just beyond the Yankees, this is, I guess, the entirety of baseball, you consider it. When is it fair game if you feel like you want to unretire it? I mean, I think it's one thing if like we were to get a news story out tomorrow that it's like, breaking, Joe Torre is a serial arsonist who's burned down 1,000 homes. Like, pretty sure his number would get unretired at that point, or at the very least, the Yankees would go to some lengths to try to put Joe Torre under some kind of shadow to kind of obscure his connection to the team or what have you. But barring something like that, like what would even be the criteria for unretiring a number beyond we just don't have enough left?
That's a good reason. That's a good reason.
Even with that, the Yankees still have a bunch of numbers from 10 onward available, just not as many as other teams do.
Yeah.
Honestly, this is a bigger problem, I think, in spring training when you have so many guys there, all of whom need a jersey, that you're just going to end up handing out 83 or whatever to 6 different guys and being like, well, we'll figure it out later. But I think
I don't
if
know, man. I
anything,
just think it's so silly. Retiring numbers is one of the silliest things in sports, and if I ever become sports czar, I'm immediately getting rid of that. Like the NBA,
okay.
like the NBA made all number 6 retired now after Bill Russell retired. Bill Russell, an icon, a legendary figure in this league, did so much good, put up with so much crap at his time. All that can be true. But also, why does the Utah Jazz? Why, if you're a player on the Utah Jazz, why can you not wear number 6? Because Bill Russell, like, what?
I mean, I do think there is probably, I don't know if there's a better way to remember it, because I agree with like the league wide retirement thing. I think it's tricky because I mean the baseball equivalent is Jackie Robinson in 42,
Right.
and I think that there is definitely a vital and useful and genuinely good purpose to having him stand us above and beyond everyone, literally everyone who's ever played the game at some point, and to think of, and to say nothing of all the players of color who have followed in his footsteps and who owe him as much as anyone else, you know, an eternal debt of gratitude for being able to do it. I think the thing with Bill Russell is a little different because Bill Russell, I mean, it's weird because I don't want to say he was not the Jackie Robinson of the NBA, mostly because that's an insane thing just to think about anyway, but also because he was never treated in that way by the league itself. And granted, MLB didn't really jump onto the Jackie Robinson bandwagon the way it did until the 90s when they did retire his number, when the league did retire his number and made Jackie Robinson Day more of a thing as opposed to what it was previously, which was to be just kind of something I was like, oh, hey, isn't that nice? But yeah, it's I don't know. I guess the question would be, if you don't want to retire numbers, like what do you want to do then to honor those particular guys? I mean, I know Yankee Stadium's got Monument Park and they do their own thing there,
That's
or
cool.
stuff like that. And I also think there is
Ring
something
of Honor,
nice,
give him some cool rings.
but like I think there's something nice about a retired number in baseball, Ring of Honor style, that it's like it ends up also being a celebration, not just of that player, but also of the, you know, the era of that team that they got to be a part of.
Yeah.
You know, that it's not so much even about the player. It's like, again, this isn't so much about Paul ONeilll, the player, because I guarantee most fans under the age of 30 do not give a crap about Paul ONeilll or who he is, or know him as anything other than the guy on Yankees broadcast who I sometimes confuse with John Flaherty, like, or whoever else is doing Yankees broadcast nowadays. Like,
maybe that's it. It's just a year. Like we give you like 25 years of a retired jersey, and then just
okay. I could see that it's like,
we want to preserve this moment for a while for the folks who, like, it'd be weird to immediately transition from a number 2 Derek Jeter to like number 2 who insert, I don't know who, like, would have, like Josh Donaldson immediately being number 2 right after Derek Jeter or something. You're like, this is insane. This
I guess
is
that's
weird.
a good point. Like there are definitely numbers that the Yankees in particular have retired, like, you know, Babe Ruth or Mickey Mantle, or, you know,
like,
guys
how
who
many
are like,
people today know what number they were? Like, how many off the top of it? Yeah.
I was even just thinking, like, what does retiring the number of someone like Bill Dickey even mean anymore?
Exactly.
Someone who mattered to a very specific time period of Yankees baseball, but who carries virtually no impact or importance currently, and not because of any deficiencies on his part as a player, but simply because he played a very, very long time ago and is really only known to a small group of particularly diehard Yankees fans, or at least knowledgeable Yankees fans and other fans. And most of that fan base is older too. Like, I can't imagine there are too many fans, again, under the age of 30, who are studying up on the Yankees retired numbers and learning all about Bill Dickey, you know? And that's not to say that means we should unretire Bill Dickey's number, but I don't know, maybe there is something to say or something to be done, or what have you, about, you know, maybe there is this idea that these numbers don't have to be permanently retired, that they can just be a temporary kind of celebration of who this player was at the time. But then we kind of also we adapt with the times, be like, hey, this guy was important, but we don't have to hold him like I don't know. I mean, it's like,
hold this number hostage for 100 years.
In a sense, it's like, well, isn't that what the Hall of Fame is for? Maybe what every team just needs is some kind of small team museum within their own stadium or something, where they can do the work of honoring these guys historically and what they meant to the franchise and what they meant to baseball at large. I don't know. I mean, I think ultimately number retirement is a harmless thing that it really only affects you if you're the Yankees in this particular scenario. I think there are some circumstances, like you said, with the Bill Russell number retirement, where it's like that number means a lot more to some teams, like the Celtics, and by some teams I mean to the Celtics, than it does to other teams in particular. Like it's really funny to think about like the New Orleans Pelicans having a retired Bill Russell number when it's like he was out of the NBA like 5 decades before they came into existence or whatever it is. Like he means nothing to them and to their fan base. I like the idea though in the sense that it is a way to signify this person meant more than just what they did on the court, that they are in some form so legendary, so important that we can't let anyone else kind of take that. But then that gets complicated too, because I mean, the Yankees even had it with themselves. 42 is retired for Jackie Robinson, but it's also retired for Mariano Rivera. Similarly with the Red Sox, 42 is retired for, or sorry, I'm thinking of, I got that wrong. You know, that David Ortiz had 34, which is now been retired. Pedro Martinez having 45 retired. Like, I don't know. It's again, I fall on the side that it's ultimately harmless, but it is kind of funny to see who gets that honor and who doesn't and why. And I think when you do end up doing something like we're retiring Paul ONeill's number, not because he's a Hall of Famer, not because he's a very important part of this team currently or its core, you know, because he's not the manager or the general manager or anything. Again, his biggest role is he is a color guy sometimes. Like, but we're doing this in order to lure in 42-year-old Yankees fans to have them come to the stadium so they can go Paulie like one more time. Yeah, I guess that's a roundabout way of saying that this feels more about the commercial and kind of nostalgia, taking advantage of the nostalgia of it as opposed to anything that had to do with Paul ONeil as the player. Because Paul ONeil, the player, is not someone you can argue really on any level or merits having his number retired. You know, especially it's not like he's a career Yankee.
Yeah.
He spent a good chunk of time in New York as a Yankee, but he was not a Yankee forever. He wasn't even a product of the Yankees farm
The
system.
majority of his team time wasn't with the Yankees, was it? Because he only got, what, 8 years with the Yankees?
Yeah, it's like it'd be like to a certain degree retiring Tino Martinez's number.
Yeah.
Or Clemens's number. You know, and I think it also speaks a lot as to who basically gets to be popular going forward.
Right.
You know, Roger Clemens arguably did as much, if not more, for those Yankees teams than Paul ONeil ever did. But Roger Clemens is never going to get his number retired because Roger Clemens is a surly prick who took steroids and nobody likes him. And the Yankees do not want to highlight that aspect of anything. They'd much rather, again, point to Paul ONeil and be like, hey, remember the guy who punched water coolers and was a big crazy hothead and whatever, and you can still hear him on Yes? Well, he's back now, and he won a bunch of rings with us. Now he's coming back. We get to have a little nostalgia day. But I mean, we're already seeing it too with teams having all the various 10-year anniversaries, 5-year anniversaries, 20-year anniversaries of championship teams and whatnot. I mean, 10 years or 9 years from now, the Braves will be doing the 2021 anniversary. You know, they'll be bringing those guys back to celebrate them, except for Marcell Ozuna. Like, that is an inescapable part of what baseball is. And I think, it's always been. Teams have been retiring numbers for a bit now. But yeah, when it's someone like ONeil, it is much more visibly a nostalgia play and a money play than it is anything about, oh, this guy was an all-time great. Paul ONeil was not an all-time great. Paul ONeil was fine. He's a fine player.
There you go. We'll leave it there, John. Next up. So there was a really good blog a few weeks back. I forgot who the author was in Defector, who wrote about the AL Central race and just how disgusted they were by the AL Central race existence.
With good reason. I believe it was Lauren Theisen.
Yeah.
I believe they're the one who wrote that.
It was a great blog, and it bears repeating. The AL Central is for sickos, and John, the Cleveland Guardians are going to win this division, and the Cleveland Guardians do not want to win the AL Central. It is the most under-talked about. No one's talking about this division right now. No one's talking about the Guardians just being in first. John, the Guardians are just in first. I don't explain to me how the Guardians are just coasting to a division title that the front office did nothing at the deadline. They have just been going about their business. No, like, I don't know if a new branding could go any more just like, just no one is any, like, there's no excitement, no buzz, and there should be. It's like, new name, great, we got rid of the racist old stuff. Guardians, cool, it means a lot to our city. The logos are so boring. The whole team is boring. It's all just